much through every single day. Of course you want to be a champion. Of course you want to be working towards winning titles.
Be happy, but never satisfied.
Better than ever.
Welcome back, Ultimate fans, to the 2023 Canadian Ultimate Championships here in Surrey, British Columbia, the senior phase of our tournament. Today we are located at the Newton Athletic Park Sports Complex. Beautiful land to be playing on. That is the traditional territories of the Semiahmoo, Katzie, Kwantlen, Kwee-Kwitlam, Kaikite, and Tsawwassen First Nations. We are so privileged to be playing on these beautiful lands, this beautiful weather. It's a little bit cooler today. The wind is present. It definitely played a role in the first game. We streamed today and the time slot before that. We'll see how it is after that. But this game, we are bringing to you a powerful matchup between the GOAT from Toronto and Mephisto from Quebec, Montreal, I believe, but if I get that wrong, I know I'll be in for it. My name is Clayton Howlett, and I'm here with Sahab Ansari. Sahab, I know you've been doing a lot of notes. How you feeling about this game?
I'm feeling great. Honestly, these are two amazingly talented teams in the open division. We know that these are both two teams that are decorated and excited to be out here. The last time we saw Mephisto at this tournament, they ended up versing up against Furious George in the finals. Unfortunately, not able to take it there, but hopefully looking to make a comeback this time around. And Toronto GOAT, a well-decorated team, a team with loads of history and some amazing players. As we can see already on the line, we have amazing Team Canada athlete Mike McKenzie with the disc in his hand. And yeah, we spoke to both of these teams, and they're both really excited to play each other. They've both had a great tournament thus far, and really, really looking forward as we see two players from either team, Mephisto and GOAT, giving each other a fist bump right in front of us. Just a nice sign of spirit between these two teams. And yeah, really, really excited for this one, Clay.
Yeah, me too. I've had the privilege of watching both teams play a lot through my meager Ultimate career. A lot of athleticism. We've seen both these teams make it to finals before. GOAT has won the championships. They do have a champion title under their belt from the 2015 championship in Winnipeg. Mephisto, I believe, does too, but I wouldn't be able to quote the year right now. This poll is going to go up high. McKenzie trying to catch the wind, and it does. That pull lands in the middle, and GOAT can set up a defense quickly. IO shot to get Mephisto's offense moving. Seeming to float into a vertical, trying to yield cuts to players. showing some organization, a little jab step cut from St. Pierre. He elevates, brings that down. So Mephisto starts the game with a hold, a pretty quick offense. Sahab, I liked in that vertical. I saw something that I don't see in a lot of vertical offense, and that was people yielding to their teammates.
Yeah, so really, really patient cuts from Mephisto there. Able to punch it into the end zone nice and quick. A great look on that throw, and also a great read from the receiver, right? See a lot of patience, slowing down and elevating right at the apex of his jump. At the start of the point, I was expecting a little bit of a zone look based off the poach from Goat to begin, but seeing right away as they ended up going right into person defense was quite interesting. As we see Mephisto ready to strike their first D point here. What do you think, Clay? Do you think they're going to pull out a zone right away?
I don't think so. I think the zones that these teams might throw will only be a slough to stop any set plays off the gun. We see most open teams usually have a set play off the pole. Sometimes that's actually a little bit harder to run if the pole is shallow. And a lot of defenses like just to get in the way and be kind of poachy and standing in different zones where cutters might go to stop anything from happening. There is a split stack here from Goat. They elect not to go with the players in that play. Instead, find a reset to the harder side of the field with the wind coming towards your screen. But Goat seeming unfazed by that. Lewis looking for options. He'll put up a big flick huck. And number 11, Jonathan Edwards, easily runs that down. We did see the wind starting to push that disc's edge into the turf, something we've seen a lot of, Sahab, a lot of at this tournament with this swilly wind. But Edwards probably knew that was coming, and he turned on the jets to get there so he could get both his mitts on that disc.
Great closing speed from Edwards there, right? And a great throw from Lewis. It's not easy to make that throw. And like you said, when it does get a little bit too edgy, that disc is going to come straight down. And this is like a great sign from both these teams, right? We saw two quick, clean holds from both sides on offense. And really, really excited to see how they continue on with this game, because this could just be these two teams trading back and forth. Spoke to the GOAT beforehand, and they did mention that their game against General Strike was back and forth with this wind, but excited to see how this carries on, Clay.
When it's back and forth in the wind like that, especially because it'll be the first break of this game, if it happens, will have to be upwind right now. So getting a break, very exciting in Open Ultimate. Getting an upwind break, especially in a really tough windy condition, field like this one, is also huge. So I think we'll hear a lot of excitement from either team when they get that first break.
Yeah.
Another pole, really catching the wind, but staying in bounds, fielded by Antoine Daigle.
The wind's starting to calm down here a little bit.
Mephisto showing a lot of room in the middle with this vertical offense. Tremblay goes to Warwick. To Daigle. Finds around to Rousseau. Mephisto probably wanting to keep the disc on that side of the field. Tremblay. Found the big receiver from earlier, St. Pierre. St. Pierre flips it up to Rousseau. To Daigle. Daigle looking for options, wants the around, is able to get it. Rousseau bobbles it a little bit, but he's able to keep it. And then a little miscue on the fake cut backwards. Goat with a chance here for break. Zlatic looks off his upfield options, finds a dump behind him. Sadler has an open man down the lane to O'Brien.
A quick pick called there.
See a lot of pick calls in vertical. Sahab, it is difficult sometimes to know where your teammates are, and you get checks running into each other.
Yeah, especially in this open division, in this quick pace as we carry on with the game.
O'Brien finds the around to Jay. Jay's pass high caught in the wind. So Wild Goat was in the red zone with a chance for a break there. Mephisto will get that back. Rousseau.
That's definitely a gift for Mephisto.
Oh, most definitely. Looking Huck, but throws the fake. Daigle instead finds the IO break to Rousseau. Rousseau's going to put that up. And St. Pierre just runs it down. A good hold by Mephisto. And, you know, Sahab, like you said, a little bit of luck on Mephisto's side that point.
Yeah, definitely a gift for Mephisto there. The wind picked up that throw around from Goats, and it just ended up sailing over the heads of the intended receiver. And great closing speed there from the Mephisto cutter, able to chase down that big Huck all the way downfield, right? And this wind has been on and off this entire game, Clay, as we just getting into the fourth point of the game.
Yeah, and you mentioned that closing speed from St. Pierre. That's going to be so important in this game, is players getting to the disc directly under it so that they can make the easiest catch possible. We saw in the junior phase of our tournament, we've seen it in our streamed games and frankly, all of our time slots in the rest of the tournament. Teams, you know, they strike, they run down the disc quite often, but then they tend to say, okay, I've beat my check, I'm just going to jog onto this, and suddenly the wind shows up and just pushes that out of the reach. But I think we're seeing two teams here of a caliber that are not going to allow that frequently. So they have the experience to get there fast.
Yeah.
Lalone Landry's pull will land in bounds, and it's going to roll a bit, so Coates able to get on top of that right away and get a pass off. Comare has McKenzie underneath to Edmonds. Edmonds doesn't like his up the line looks. He's going to get an easy reset, a hard reset, I should say, to McKenzie, but McKenzie fighting through that contact to grab it. Paula's back to McKenzie and around to O'Donnell. Looks like there's a call. Not sure what. I'm believing a pick or a push off. Excuse me. So Salvas is trying to explain what happened. It looks like he believes that O'Donnell should keep that, and it's going to come in on one.
Yeah, definitely hard. We didn't see any pick hands go up. So
McKenzie back to Salvas. Looks off McKenzie, running out of time, but he's able to go around to Edwards. Go, showing some discipline here in the end zone, not trying to punch it. Instead, Edmonds is now able to find an open cutter to Lewis. Lewis doesn't like that dump. Double coverage is patient, but it was Charles Gay with a great D and kind of behind his back, looking heads up with that one. Thomas Lalone Landry drops the disc. In turn, a gift now for Goat.
Yeah, Goat really excited for that one for sure.
Edmonds goes over the top, upside down to O'Donnell. And a gift given, a gift received.
Gift given, gift received. And that is definitely a lot of experience there. It is not easy to make that over the top throw, right? Upside down into this wind, or sorry, with this wind, right? Those discs are going to come up and down real fast. And as we see this Goat setup, right? They're making great cuts from the stack, like we said, like we wanted to see from them. They're quick, they're effective. And on top of that, they have a really, really loud sideline. They're talking to each other. They're making sure that they're playing good, strong D. Earlier in the points, we heard them upset at each other, right? Saying, that's not a good mark, right? They are forcing each other to be as good as possible. And this is just kind of the energy you need from these teams.
And when I mentioned earlier teams of these caliber, another feature you often see is that you did that satisfactory. Yeah. Good. That was part of the plan. Now, how do you elevate, right? And we see these teams say to each other, that was good, but it's not the best we could do. So they're always going to put the pressure on each other to improve, to go that extra mile, even seemingly when they've already done so. Just a characteristic of high-level ultimate.
Yeah, and these teams aren't aren't happy to win by 1 or 2 points, right? They want to have those commanding leads. They want to have those commanding victories, and they're always pushing for them, right? They are working hard as we see this pull coming in from Mike McKenzie.
That pull landing close to the end zone. Horizontal look from Mephisto. Tremblay. Mephisto doing a good job here of working it around to the harder side of the field. Daigle, his pass is on the inside of Lacombe Burgoyne. And Goat now in a great position, about 30 yards outside of the end zone, just in front of half. Little tic-tac-toe between Huynh and his handler core. Jeff Powell with the disc. Finds a cut of the front of the stack to Carroll. Carroll finds a reset. Getting up to the side of the field where the grandstands are. The wind is coming from behind the grandstands to us. So more of a favorable position laterally right now. McKenzie. And there's a pick down field as Carroll started his fakes. Once again, vertical offense, not uncommon thing to happen, but there is a bit of a discussion ensuing down the field about whether or not that was a legal pick call between the Goat and Mephisto players. So they'll work that out. Seem to have the stall is going to come in at 2. Andrew Carroll with the disc.
As we see Jason Huynh set up right in front of him, ready to make that cut.
Oh, and Carroll's pass was kind of telegraphed, I would say. It looked like Daigle saw that coming, but a strip is called. Daigle doesn't seem to disagree. So Lewis now directing traffic a little bit. Lamb to Huynh. Huynh goes around to McKenzie. McKenzie doesn't like the up the line look. Will dump to Lewis. Lewis goes over the top to Huynh. Carroll cycles into the stack, comes back out for a reset. Huynh takes off. McCray getting involved. He's able to throw that backhand to McKenzie. Our first break of the game, and you see the energy from Goat in achieving that monumental kind of upwind break, Sahab.
Yeah, and I personally think that is the only valid time you should be allowed to spike, right? I see a lot of teams spiking on 0 points. I see a lot of teams spiking when they score downwind, but this is the only time where it seems reasonable, right? It's a break point that you scored, upwind nonetheless. It is not easy to do that. And so getting your team fired up after that is definitely necessary, right? You see a lot of great movement from these players like McKenzie, like Huynh, right? Really, really quick back and forth, able to move it up the field effectively.
Do you tell your juniors when it's appropriate to spike when you're coaching?
Personally,
I'm sorry.
Coaching in the women's division, I don't see very often. I don't see spikes. But I do love a little bit of hyping each other up and some soft spikes. I hate it when they warp the disc.
Yes.
And I try to get them to stay away from that. You know, soft spikes, giving them a nice little tap in the air, a little bit of flip. Try teaching them the elevator, where that's where you flip it from one bottom hand to the top hand and get a nice little catch there.
Oh, that is a stylish one.
Yeah, definitely a stylish one. Try to get them to avoid the spike it directly into the ground and warp it.
The score, 3-2. Goat with the first break of the game. Now, I like the term driver's seat here. Goat is definitely in it because now as they pull on D-line, Mephisto's going to be forced to work the disc in a much more difficult direction thanks to the conditions. Rousseau with the disc, seeing a sloughy zone look here from Goat. It is a zone. They seem to be forcing straight up. They want the Mephisto players to take those lateral shots and eventually get frustrated, go upfield, and then snack on that. Rousseau is able to do a little tic-tac-toe with help from Quinlan, and then Goat gets that turnover they wanted after the disc is moved forwards, what they were looking for in their zone. An IO shot is broken up by a big layout from Kevin Quinlan. But the disc not in a great position on the field if you're Mephisto here. They don't seem to mind getting the disc to move quickly.
And go with their set here.
Lacombe Bourgogne back to Rousseau. Lacombe Bourgogne doesn't get that pass from Rousseau. Rousseau looking for options. Finds Quinlan. Back to Rousseau. We've just seen tic-tac-toe between just a few players here. Goat doing a good job of really locking them down. They've pushed them into their end zone. This is Callahan country if you're Goat. Lacombe Bourgogne looking for options, goes to Rousseau. Back to Lacombe Bourgogne. Mephisto showing composure in this risky part of the field. They are able to get it out of their end zone. Lacombe Bourgogne finds a hole, and now Mephisto's off to the races. Here, the melt call to match defense from Goat. Warwick gets that to Quinlan. He'll flip that to Rousseau. Quinlan, vertical offensive stack now from Mephisto. That's aired out for Lacombe Bourgogne. Goat in the area. They don't see it, and Lacombe Bourgogne just cannot bring that in as it was caught in the wind. Mephisto signaling they're going to force towards the close sideline on your screen at the bottom.
Yeah, and I'd like to see some under forces here. I definitely don't want to see a huck. As I say that, a big huck coming through for Goat.
O'Brien underneath, but two Mephisto players there. It seems to me that O'Brien called a foul because there is a discussion. It's a tough one. It was into double coverage. I expect, based on the body language of the players, this to go back, but we might get an observer ruling. I'd like to say, while I see observer Nathan over there, he's not trying to insert himself into the play right now. There's been a big misconception about why is the observer there right away? Well, it is really helpful for the observers to have context, to hear the discussion between players that should they be asked for a ruling, they don't need to interview everybody and figure out what's going on. Instead, our observer staff is going to have the information they need. So if they're asked for a ruling, they'll get it. Observer Nathan does signal foul contests, or foul no contest, excuse me. So the players coming to an agreement after some discussion. O'Brien being told that he has to tap the disc in live from where it lies. He can't bring it up to the line to make the disc live. So Mephisto has a chance to sort of mark up on defense here. O'Brien flips that out in front of Miller. Miller, tic-tac-toe. He's back with him. He's looking for some cuts. Goat content to do these little tiny throws in the front here. Ensuing collision. And Miller seeming a little fired up after that contact. Another break for Goat, bringing our score to 4-2.
Yeah, and that's the young player, Dax Miller, coming up from the junior scene this year. A young, fired-up player who we love to see developing into this top-level team of Goats. Definitely really looking forward to it, and it seems like Observer is calling a timeout.
Yeah, Mephisto calling a timeout.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, or perhaps the fans out there can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Dax Miller played Toro last year.
He did.
Okay,
yes.
good. I called one of his games. You mentioned his name, and it clicked for me. Yeah, and he, on that Toro team last year in the junior division, he was their pivot handler.
Definitely the pivotal player.
And you know what? That just shone through on that point because they seem to be happy to go back to Miller. Tiny little passes in the end zone, really tight pocket to score in that like front corner, maybe using like 2% of the area of the end zone to score in. But, go putting a lot of faith in Miller's abilities just to be the quarterback there in front of the end zone. A lot of faith in his hands.
Yeah, and there was a reason why he was one of the top scoreboard players for the junior tournament last year, right? He's always there in the end zone. He's also the one who's touching the disc really common, and a player who on that junior roster, right, wasn't the strongest Toro roster from past experiences, right? But it was a great roster. Dax Miller able to show his strength for that roster, and he's really bringing in that same sort of strength in for this Mephisto D-line there, able to get a second break. Much needed break, and yeah, really excited to see how Goat sets up here, and if they're able to bring back this third break. Those two breaks can be really, really scary for a team like Mephisto, but
And that's why
to come back from.
That's why that timeout makes sense too.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, okay, we got scored on the upwind on the hard side of the field. They broke us. And now we just broke on the downwind. That was kind of expected, right? Goat was in the driver's seat. They were in a really advantageous position. So the coaching staff of Mephisto probably recognizing that, like, all right, let's think about our mental game for a minute. Goat getting that upwind point, disappointing. And now they're kind of, smothering us here by getting that downwind break, which is a little bit more expected. So how are we going to regroup, keep our heads in this? So a smart timeout. Mackenzie's pull is going to stay inbounds, but Mephisto does have some time to get a pass off before the defense arrives. Sort of a split stack offense. Goat going straight into person defense. A layout D from number 6, Jason Lamb, immediately through the handler core, is going to give Jason Quinn a chance here right outside the end zone. And he goes around to a wide open Wilkie Lewis with an emphatic spike showing, thank you for putting me on for 30 seconds. I'll get you the point. And Goat gets another upwind break, bringing the score to 5-2.
Yeah, and if I'm Mephisto right now, I'm upset, right? That is not an easy point to lose, right?
Especially after a timeout.
Yeah, he came out of nowhere with that layout block. I blinked and I missed it, right? It's scary to be in that sort of position. It seems like Mephisto trying to get themselves fired up. Go, like you said, in that driver's seat now, leading with a third break, making that score 5-2 now.
Yeah,
in Goat's favor.
3 breaks in a row. Not an uncommon comeback, but definitely I feel that was far more, instead of just getting one more point to lead with, that was a point where Goat just kind of clobbered the morale.
Yeah.
Of Mephisto there. Now we'll see if Mephisto bounces back. I'm not saying they're finished. Obviously not. It's early. But out of a timeout, and then to have the other team make a big layout block and then score on the harder side of the field quickly, a 30-second break point. I mean, after a timeout, really gets to you, right? That's a really tough thing to deal with. So, I'd like to see how Mephisto responds here. I did talk to their coaches earlier. They talked about how they're trying to be a lot more honest and open with each other and their emotions, trying to get the team to support each other when they're down. So let's see how much they can exercise that to put themselves back in this and get this kind of dire upwind point. McCown working the handler core with Lalone Landry. Eloise to McCown. McCown getting into some give-go with Lalone Landry and Eloise. Ayad getting involved, but this zone from Goat, very active, turning around often to see all the players, kind of late bid there against Salvas, but he didn't seem to mind, jumped over the contact and caught the disc, but now it seems there might have been a travel call.
Travel called
against Elliot Eloise.
Yeah, and those are one of those hard ones, right? You want to get those give and goes real quick, so sometimes it does end up turning into a travel. And, players try their hardest to make sure they maintain that back foot onto the ground. That pivot foot has to stay on the ground before you release the disc. and as we carry on here,
as a handler, I feel like Dax Miller has had probably a bunch of travels called against him, so has a general idea of when it's giving that advantage to the other player.
Yeah. And
Eloise finds Duplex. Eloise swinging it around. We'll get it right back. Starting to get some forward momentum here, but Goat then smothering again. That pass wavering, but Duplex brings it in. Eloise back to Ayad. Good give goes here. Good composure by Mephisto right now. The give goes are working for them. They are getting a few yards here and there, but now and Goat just comes right back and starts pushing them backwards. Hearing a lot of noise from the Goat sideline. They are appreciating the hard work this D-line is putting in to make Mephisto move backwards. Mephisto not really feeling the pressure, but handling it. Duplex finds Ayad. to Lalone Landry, fakes the huck. Elects for the safer option, which is a swing to McCown. Lalone Landry. Teloa. Teloa looking for options, fakes the scoober. Finds a breakthrough. Unfortunately, no follow-up from McCown. But Eloal gets that right back. Lalone Landry. Finds Eloal. Thomas Lalone Landry. Nothing there, so he'll flip that back to Salvas. Lalone Landry and Salvas working together now.
And this goat zone is starting to get a little bit tired now.
Yeah, but they've still kept Mephisto behind half here. Mephisto has not broken past the halfway mark. I mean, that is half of the battle for this GOAT D-line. You hear that GOAT sideline just pumping their players up. Keep working hard. Keep working. Now you've got them back behind their brick mark. They're just outside of their end zone. Big pass finds a hole to Duplex. Rousseau working so hard. Goes for the huck. And Kevin J saw it coming, protects himself, turns it back to it, bounces off his backside. And now GOAT right outside the end zone. Miller. Slatic finds a reset. Turcotte. To Jay. He'll go back to Turcotte. Turcotte doesn't like the IO, so he'll go back to Jay. And Jay finds the open man from the back of the stack. And GOAT, after such hard work, is able to finally get a turn and then score that point. Kelvin Huang with the goal. That brings our score 6-2 for Toronto's GOAT. Sahab, I mean, wow.
Yeah.
What a defensive zone there. And just to stick with it in such grit and tenacity to hold that. And then Jay putting his body on the line there a little bit.
On the line. And I'd like to commend Mephisto for that, because first off, it is not easy to play against the zone. Second off, it is not easy to play against GOAT's zone. Third off, it's not easy to play against GOAT's zone in this kind of win. And they are going back and forth, making at least 50, 60 throws, trying to break something through. Nothing is available against this win, right? You see they want those huck options, but it's just not open. And they're trying their hardest. Mephisto doing an amazing job on offense. And it is not an easy task, for sure. For those of you watching at home, I'm sure you've played against the zone where you felt like there's absolutely nothing to do. Mephisto trying their hardest, and I am faithful.
One
will figure something
very interesting thing about that zone, Mephisto had the disc for so long, and they were able to move it laterally. Their handlers kept it together, and the turnover was the huck.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting how that zone, GOAT was willing to hold that for so long, and until finally Mephisto went for the upfield, that's where the turnover was. That zones like that suffocate are designed to do that, to try and generate the turnovers when the other team goes upfield. And when Mephisto finally made that decision, turnover. The blue line on that sideline has been deceptive for some players. They don't always notice it. Seen a lot of turnovers on that line. So GOAT is given a gift here as Mephisto just kind of worked that disc up and it went out of bounds. But Wynn's pass is too low, pushed down from the wind. Warwick decides not to pick up. So, and the disc rolling into a favorable position as Rousseau picks up. Some swings. Thompson swings, makes it over to Daigle. Daigle gets that to Quinlan off his hands, but he's able to make the catch, I think. Swing is asking, perhaps, did you fumble that or did it land out of bounds? He's just checking. Checks in with Quinlan, and Quinlan says, no, I got it. Swing says, okay.
Yeah, and it's windy right now.
It's
really
picked up.
Starting to pick up.
Tremblay finds a hole in the defense there, and Lacombe Burgoyne reins that in. So Mephisto getting
much needed hold.
Getting a much needed hold. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And
they needed this.
as the wind picks up, we'll see what sort of adjustment they make to their defense to try and stifle Goat. We've seen both teams make a few mistakes in the wind. We've seen some really good defensive plays. That hasn't been all the turnovers, don't get me wrong, but we have seen both teams affected by the wind a few times here. So the wind is often called the great equalizer in Ultimate, sometimes really changing up how a team has to play, where they might have strengths that they're known for that they can't really run in these conditions.
Yeah, Clay, and I'd like to bring up that, with this kind of win, it really does become anyone's game. And these big kind of breaks when in games where there is no wind present does become more prevalent, right? And it does mean a lot more, right? Having this sort of big 2-3 point break. But in this kind of win, it can really change everything, right? These experienced Goat and Mephisto players with a lot of experience throwing can make a small mistake with the wind just picking it up as we see this pull come through.
Speaking of the wind picking it up, that pull making it all the way down to the brick mark before the wind pushed it backwards. Goat now about 30 yards outside of the end zone. Komire finds an IO flick out to number 8, Edmonds. And he'll find McKenzie immediately, Ian McKenzie.
Yeah. As we carry on here, we see a nice little up the line throw from Goats.
Saw some heads down looking at the ground from Mephisto there. I mean, the disc was tapped in legally, but that play happened so fast. Adam O'Donnell just turning on the Jets to get up the line right away from that. Great pass, flat, easy, kind of sat right at the cone from Ian McKenzie there. Right, getting a timeout here from Goat. Yep, timeout called by Goat. So they're probably just thinking, yeah, we can refine some things right now. We are currently in control of this game. We just got another hold.
Yeah.
Maybe we want to talk about where our heads are at. It's hard for a lot of teams. You get a 4, 5, 6 point lead. And a lot of teams, when you're learning that mental discipline, take their foot off the gas, as we say. They sort of let their guard down, let their energy fizzle a little bit. And then suddenly the other team, their opponent, is back in the game. It's what happened. And that's letting go of that fire, letting go of that intensity that you had at the beginning of the game, because you get comfortable and complacent with that lead. But Goat, an experienced team, not the first lead they've ever had.
Definitely. And like you're saying, these teams, you see it a lot in the junior division, right? Complacency happens. But this Goat team is an experienced team, right? That is an experienced timeout call that not a lot of coaches would know to make, right? It really, really shows the maturity of this team, making sure that your team is still 100% focused in, locked in, not ready to let their foot off the gas, right? Really, really, really pushing it all the way through the end of the game. And yeah, like I said at the beginning, right? These teams are not happy with a 1 or 2 point lead or 1 or 2 point victory. They want to finish off strong, as if their opponents never even had an opportunity to get back into it.
And finishing strong, the other thing is that means you get to save your legs.
Yeah.
Right? This is a power pool or a power pool game. If Goat wins this game, they win the power pool, so that puts them in a really favorable position going into the bracket play. And you don't want to go into bracket play with some of your best players tired or hurt. So finish the game off quick. You get to preserve your legs. And we know that a team like Goat is going to have that philosophy. A big hike to the Combe Burgoyne. That was just a bomb from Rousseau. Carroll unable to make up the ground on that as Lacombe Burgoyne turned on the Jets. A hard one to cover if you're Carroll. I mean, the wind picked that up. And also Lacombe Burgoyne, he's fast.
Yeah, really fast. And this is kind of the style that we see from the Quebec teams, right? We saw it yesterday with Quake, right? They're really good at that first 1-2 pass, pick up and throw it deep, right? I don't want to call them a huck and pin team because clearly showing how they played against the zone, they are not. But that's definitely a style that they like to implement into their games every once in a while, right? And it works for them. Very, very effective for these Quebecois teams.
So we're seeing now Mephisto kind of getting their rhythm. I love to see that confidence in a Huck.
Yeah.
When you're down like that too, like you're like, no, we're still playing our game. We're still playing our style.
Yeah,
like
and
you say, not getting away from
that. Right, and I want to see them carry on with that, and I want to see them keep pushing forward with that disc. Let's see what they can bring out here on defense, right? I want to see them force that turnover. Right now, we've seen a lot of unforced errors happen for Mephisto's favor. I want to see them force that turnover, right? Just as Goat has been doing thus far, getting that layout block, getting those run through Ds, as we see that pull making it right to the brick mark.
Lone Landry's pull does land at the brick mark. Slough person defense here. So Goat sets up in a side stack while Mephisto's D is trying to poach in the lanes. They're trying to get in the way of where the cutters are going to be. But Goat doesn't seem to mind. Still finding open players. Ian McKenzie finds Edmonds. He'll put a pass up that was sort of soft. And Elliot Eloise is able to make a play in really important break opportunity for Mephisto.
Yeah, that's the D that I'm looking for, right? That's what I'm talking about. Let's see Mephisto bring this one up the field.
Pick call out of the vertical. That might be on Salvas. He is pretty open, or perhaps, you know what? I don't think it is. He just made a great cut. So the disc will stay with Salvas. All players making sure they're on the same page. Salvas now. Finds Gay. Gay flips that to Eloise.
And this wind is really starting to pick up now.
Raphael Lone Landry finds Gay. Gay to Salvas. Cajon are getting involved. To Leonard. To Lone Landry.
Number 23 there.
Yeah, the Lone Landry doing a lot of work for Mephisto, and they do get the upwind break.
A much-needed break for Mephisto. They are fired up now. We are bringing the score back a little bit closer. Mephisto 5, Goat 7.
Now, Sahab, when we say much-needed break, let's talk about what we mean by that. We're not talking numbers here, right?
Yeah.
We're talking mentally, momentum, right? So mentally, this is the first time Mephisto has scored upwind.
Yeah.
Right? So now Mephisto, they're all saying to themselves, hey, we can actually do this, right? We haven't got one yet. It maybe perhaps in their timeout, they said it will come. It will come. And now that they've done it, they're like, okay, we've opened this up. We've opened up this jar. It's the open, the opening of the we're going to score upwind jar here. They need that. So they're going to have that.
All you need, right?
Yeah, they're going to have that confidence. And now they've just scored 2 points in a row. And it does put them on the side of the field that has been more advantageous this game. So while the wind is seemingly gusty, it's coming at our faces right now, just underneath the camera. So from the grandstands to us. But when it does shift laterally, it is left to right. So Mephisto, a good spot here. Goat seeming unfazed. The sideline cheering on their O-line before this pull. And we've seen a really, really effective O-line from Goat today. But I think this is the first, this will be the second time. So I'm not sure if this is the first or second time Goat's O-line will have to be scoring upwind here.
This will be the first time Goat's upwind will be scoring up, or sorry, Goat's O-line will be scoring upwind.
Or attempting to.
Yes.
Comire will center that disc. Horizontal offense set by Goat. Carroll. Doesn't like his options right away, but Edmonds screaming laterally across the field gets that disc. O'Donnell fighting through the contact to Ian McKenzie. McKenzie goes back to Edmonds. He finds a bigger round shot to Mike McKenzie. And that pass, just a little miscue. I think O'Donnell changed his line to the disc. And that pass was just on his inside shoulder, so he was effectively running away from it. McCown picks up for Mephisto.
Yeah, and let's see what Mephisto does with this. Little no-look pass there.
Thomas Lalone Landry finds Ayed. Ayed doesn't have much options except for a big IO flick to McCown, who gets it across the other side of the field. Lalone Landry goes for the huck, but there is a hand block by his defender. Edmonds brings the disc in, perhaps not where he needed to, but doesn't matter. He made that choice.
Oh, a little bit of a
Big
push there.
Yeah, big bump by O'Donnell. Seems to be a stoppage. And let's I'm not sure because,
Yeah, the
no
good
hand
player
signals.
not really happy about that little bump there, and an immediate pushback that came through. So definitely a contact call, and yeah,
This
both
is why
players
you're the
not
man
really
with the
happy about that.
binoculars, Sahab.
Yeah,
Yeah.
both players really not happy about the situation that happened, and this is kind of one of those turning points in the game where it could start getting real messy real fast, and I hope I don't have to see that, and we hope that we don't have to cast a game like that.
Well, you also see that like teams that are in the lead, big name teams like Go, once teams start pushing back against them, it can lead to a little bit of frustration, or the first time that they're facing that adversity in this game can lead to some heightened emotions. O'Donnell gets a big pass around to Lewis. Pick down the field. No foul. Alone Landry working out with him, and I hear a player from the field say, "That's tragic." And I think it was Mike McKenzie, as he felt he was wide open deep.
Mike McKenzie definitely was excited to hit that strike deep. But unfortunately, calling
Lewis
the tragic calls.
Finds Ian. He's looking for an option to his brother. It's not there. Instead, he'll put that out to O'Donnell, but a soft pass leads to a big layout bid from McCown.
Yeah, and I'd like to see a big huck come through here from Mephisto, just as we've seen earlier, and they could attempt.
But instead, an OI flick into the wind. It's pushed up, and Goad able to kind of get a big open pass and a quick flip for the hold. The upwind hold. Our score now 8-5. We will be taking half at 8. These games are to 15. For those interested, that was 1 minute before our halftime time cap would have come into play.
Yeah.
So halves at this phase of the tournament are 8 minutes long. Sahab, favorite thing that happened in the first half?
Oh, honestly, my favorite thing that happened was that big layout block that happened right at Mephisto's goal line for Goat to get that break that they wanted upwind. That was exciting and really elevated for that. So yeah, looking forward to more of those exciting layout blocks, and looking forward to see how Mephisto turns around, because halftime teams do win games.
So Jason Lamb with the highlight play of the first half. We'll see what else he and his GOAT team have in the second, and how Mephisto intends to make up this 3-point deficit. We'll be back with you shortly. Welcome back, Ultimate fans, to our Open Division Power Pool matchup at the 2023 Canadian Ultimate Championships here at Newton Athletic Park. We are playing on our showcase field today, sponsored by two sponsors. The first I'll mention, BE Ultimate, the apparel company sponsoring this tournament, supplying our staff shirts, supplying many jerseys to many teams, and they have their big swag tent open here where you can come down and buy all your favorite things before they're out of stock. But if they are, you can check them out on the internet. They do have a website where you can order things, have them delivered. And also, Discraft is sponsoring this tournament, supplying us with the practically only piece of equipment that you really need to make this game work, the game discs. And we thank Discraft for supplying us with those. And the story of this game so far has been a lot of energy and hunger for more from this GOAT squad from Toronto, as they have been trying to suffocate Mephisto from Quebec.
Yeah, for those of you that missed the first half here, GOAT starting off with a couple of early breaks to take a commanding lead right now. Score is currently 8-5. GOAT getting a couple of great layout blocks. Mephisto playing against the GOAT zone, playing quick and aggressive, trying to figure things out. And GOAT kind of starting the game off with the extra breaks as we see this first pull coming in for the Mephisto D-line.
That pull fielded by GOAT. They're able to get a pass off. Start with a lot of open space in the middle, but instead they're just working it through their handler core. Ian McKenzie to John Edwards. Edwards looking for options, finds an up the line to Adam O'Donnell, who keeps his feet in. And a big upfield pass to Lewis. And GOAT still working it up with little pushback right now. Able to find a free reset just like that one to Luke Cormier. And he'll find a pass kind of coming from the back of the stack, shaking a cutter. I didn't quite see who that was, Sahab, but that offense didn't seem to struggle at all.
GOAT's number 60, James Lewis, catching it in the end zone there.
Yeah. Hard when you get those tall bodies in the way to see from down here, Sahab. So I'm sorry, Lewis, not giving you credit right away.
Yeah, especially on the far end of the field, but that is some amazing quick movement from GOAT, right? Finding the open players, quickly getting those backhands back and forth, shooting the lefties as well, right? Finding the open space. And this is really the style of GOAT's Ultimate that we want to see, right? We want to see them moving the disc quickly back and forth using both ends of the field and punching it in nice and fast. That was an aggressive throw into the end zone, and sometimes those ones end up in turns, right? But the GOAT player able to keep his composure in the end zone and punching it in, right?
Yeah, and these teams, I mean, with the level that GOAT plays at, right, while you're right that there are turnovers off spicy throws like that, these players are very used to that. Usually when you're making a team of a caliber like GOAT, you're someone that's able to rein in the most difficult passes. And if it's going to hit you in both hands, even if it has a lot of mustard behind it, you're usually making that catch. They're almost expected to at the level they play at. That pull, going to go visit our fans in the grandstands. Just going over top of the Ultimate Canada sign. So that disc likely will be centered by Mephisto. Looks like we're going to have Dylan Lacombe-Burgoyne pick up.
Yeah, we have an observer beanbag pop down onto the ground there.
Oh, so it's a little bit closer.
A little bit closer to the end zone. So
vertical offense set by Mephisto. And what looks like a zone look, or at the very least a slough in the way.
Style look.
Rousseau goes over to Lacombe-Burgoyne. They'll work together. Quinlan gets involved. He's been doing a lot of heavy handler work today. Mephisto able to punch it through, and now they're getting it moving. But GOAT still holding on to that slough. Seem to be okay with the disc where it is. Lacombe Burgoyne looked off Rousseau initially, but then Rousseau was wide open, so he'll keep it. That pass is going to float, and elevating is Mario Zlatic with the big grab. Turcotte. He'll find a dump to Huang. Huang looking for options, gets a big yak call, and he'll put that out to Jay. Jay comes down between two defenders. Not quite in. Miller unable to kind of shuffle his feet in. It elects to go for a reset to Zlatic. Goat showing some patience now. Miller in that pivot position. There's a pick called. Jay will catch up with his check. Amicable call there.
Yeah, and I like the quick heads-up plays from both these teams, right? We saw earlier, right before that pull from Goat came out, Kevin Quinlan noticed the pull or the big huck was going to happen, and he tried shoving himself in the way. Wasn't able to get there right away, and the pull did end up, or the huck does still end up going through. But yeah, quick heads-up play from both these teams, right? They're very smart, and they know what's going to happen next. As we carry on with this play, Dax Miller with the disc.
Miller in his check, seemingly just figuring out the stall count. Coming in on 4. Miller elects to go for a reset. Points one way, Turcotte goes the other, lays out to make that play, keeps himself in bounds. Turcotte finding a shot up the line. Quo. He'll reset to Turcotte. Sadler. Didn't see any options there, so Jay is back for the dump. He'll get it back in the middle to Sadler. Goes for a give-go right away. Instead, Sadler finds the around flick to Huang. Now some big movement from Goat, and it pays off. Number 14, Mario Zlatic, elevating, making that athletic grab, extending Goat's lead 10-5.
Yeah, Zlatic really got up there for that grab. And, you know, that play really starts with the great movement between Sadler there, right? Sadler and Turcotte. They're moving it back and forth effectively and really kind of dominating that handler space. Turcotte kind of getting back into the cup or into the stack quickly after his time spent going back and forth, hitting those up lines, right? And that's effective Goat handling, and that's the O-line there for you from Goats. Calm, composed,
Yeah.
able to score upwind with ease.
Yeah, you love to see it in the end zone where you're watching the offense just take their time, taking the 100% shots, the passes you know are going to work, and not trying to force it in. Seen so many teams have heartbreaking situations where they've gotten it down to the end zone, and after a few passes back and forth, they try to force it in on the upwind side, and then the other team runs it back. And when you had that upwind opportunity and you squander it by just getting a little too impatient, it's just really demoralizing. And Goat kind of past that phase of their ultimate careers, able to show lots of patience and professionalism down in the end zone. And then a pull from Mike McKenzie has left the building. Actually, not quite. Bounces off the fence, but the wind picks that up. So it seems that number 19, Felix Leonard, will bring that up. And I feel like I'm seeing Goat here jump into Slough. They do. Several players downfield on defense with their back to the disc. That one sneaks past Powell to Lalone Landry. Lalone Landry not really finding any options, looking behind him for a reset. Pitches that out to the middle. That's off a hand. And it comes down in Mephisto's possession, but I'm not sure. I think a few players are confused on what happened. There is a signal from Alan Baggish, one of our observers, that it was a stall, meaning that Lalone Landry was stalled down.
And it seems like Landry is going to contest the stall down call.
Yeah, Lalone Landry with the contest, so it's not a turnover, nor does Mephisto get the disc upfield. Andrew Carroll's stall count will be coming in at 8. Lalone Landry quickly flips that behind him and then gets it right back. Mephisto giving him some more options this time. Bernard flips that back to Lalone Landry. Leonard. And Lalone Landry tic-tac-toe. Leonard finds a hole, and Cajoner turns on the Jets. As I felt that pass could have been defended, but his speed, Cajoner's speed, he's able to reel that in. And has a friendly moment there with the GOAT player.
Yeah, and Lalone Landry there really commanding that offense for Mephisto, right? On every other touch there, able to find those nice inside shots to kind of break through the space that they needed, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, Clay, I did say that the previous point that GOAT scored was an O point, but now I'm thinking it might have been a D point, Clay.
Oh, now you caught me forgetting to.
Yeah.
Well, fans, you know what happened. You can rewind. We can't. Well, you tell us. We'll take your word for
Trying
it.
our best to remember. But yeah, like I said, Lalone Landry definitely moving the disc effectively. And you see he's holding the disc for a while there. He's trying to find the most effective option. He is that handler that Mephisto is going to trust, right? And Leonard eventually being able to find a great shot upwind there to punch it in.
Maxime Ayad's pull will land in bounds with a big bounce. GOAT fields it as they get into a horizontal offense and moving the disc to the harder side of the field. Off the hands of Ian McKenzie. A bit of a gift here for Mephisto, as that's an uncharacteristic drop from GOAT.
Yeah, and Mephisto's definitely excited for this one here.
McCown picks up. Doesn't like his options off of the stack initially, and then in turn that bounces off the hands of Rafael Salvas. So Komure taking his time, bringing up to the disc, allowing his offense to set. He's looking for options. Finds an IO to Turcotte, or Edmonds, excuse me. Edmonds finding Lewis. Lewis moves that to Edmonds. Edmonds a low throw, but Komure is able to run that down, and he'll just go right back to Edmonds. The two playing together. Other players in the area, and that pass put far out in front of Jonathan Edwards, and GOAT with the hold. The score now 11 GOAT, Mephisto 6.
Yeah, two little unforced errors there, right? It's definitely hard when you are the player on the D-line. You get that disc back into your hands and you get nervous, right? You get kind of in that position where it's like it's hard. It's not easy to score that point, and you do end up having those unforced errors where it does kind of tap out of your hands. It is not easy in this kind of wind, and I'm sure you hear it through the microphones, everyone watching at home.
It's interesting, Sahab. Now, both teams, an upwind score back-to-back there. And early in our first half, we didn't really see that happening much for Mephisto. They only had one, but now both teams not seeming to have found their groove here in the wind and just trading. A little bit unexpected, as we usually think that it's going to go the other way.
Yeah.
Now, though I'm interested to see here, because I think what we're going to see from GOAT is that big slough zone again. We saw a point in the first half when they were pulling from the left side of your screen that it was a really long point, a really tenacious defense where GOAT never gave up, moved the disc backwards, made Mephisto move the disc backwards. And it was just finally when Mephisto tried to move it upfield, there was a turn. Miller comes down quick, and yes, we do see that zone. Mephisto earlier finding some holes. Instead, go for a reset to Rousseau. Lacombe Burgoyne will go back to Rousseau. He's looking for options. Finds Dagla. Rousseau. McCown now. Not left with any options. Travel call, but he'll go back, do the self-check. He flips that back to Degla. Deg has McCown. Finds Lacombe Burgoyne. And Goat able to get a hand on that. I believe that was Mario Zlatic with the D.
Yeah,
Indeed it was.
Hands there. Mephisto back on defense here.
Turcotte. Flips to Sadler. Works its way back to Turcotte. Miller saying, I'm here. Turcotte's like, okay, I have Jay. Miller gets it now. He throws that big flick fake, lefty flick flag. Everybody buys it. Sadler is just going to air that out. And unfortunately, the soft throws in this game have been eaten up by either team. So Tremblay with the D moves that up the field. Another soft throw, but Rousseau's all alone, so he's able to hold on to it. Rousseau.
This is starting to get really tight into the space here for these Mephisto handlers.
Degla moving that to Rousseau, taking his time to McCown. Degla finds a hole. Lacombe Burgoyne moves that to Rousseau. Wants it right back to get a give-go going. Rousseau. McCown. Mephisto just taking these little passes, finding their way through. Degla now with the disc, getting into the red zone. I hear a fire call from the Goat sideline, probably meaning a melt to match defense. Rousseau. Offhand flip to Tremblay. And his pass will make it to Sam Warwick in the back of the end zone. Another upwind hold. Not the story we saw in the first half.
Definitely, and it seems like both teams have really started to adapt here, and you can see that Mephisto is definitely way more calm and composed playing against this Goat zone, right? You have these Goat players really tightening up the space, not making it easy for these Mephisto players, and they're able to find those throws. No gaps needed there, just quick, calm composure from the handlers, and that's what we want to see from Mephisto. Now as they work it downwind, let's see if they can generate a break here with their D-line.
It's interesting that neither team for a little while now has generated that downwind break, which was seemingly an easy thing to do in the first half. The score is 11-7. This is a game where you cannot run out the clock. So we are about 17 minutes away from our soft cap. The soft cap rule is that at 85 minutes when the horn goes, the current point will finish. And in the ensuing point, we add an imaginary point to the highest score, and then the game is to that score. If the highest score is 10, the game would be to 11. So you can't run out the clock in these games. So once you get a lead, you still have to score to win. Goat quickly moving the disc upfield against a matched defense. Have been using some superior speed today to get the disc moving in these situations as Commerier is able to find Edmonds. He'll dump to O'Donnell. Back to Edmonds. Lewis working hard in the front of the stack to get that upfield pass. Doesn't like what he sees upfield. A few options. And that Hawk will sail all the way around to Edmonds. A big toss there from number 18, Ryan Polaz. And another upwind hold. I feel weird saying that, Sahab, but you know what? Both teams now showing the wind is no longer going to be a problem for them. We did see a few airs here and there, but now both teams seemingly quite confident in these conditions. And Mephisto is still in it, aren't they? They haven't got their heads down. They're coming together as a squad after every point, making sure they have their heads up, hearing the line call. Goat's energy, I would say on the defensive points, is loud.
Yeah, and they're fired up, Goat, right? When you have these kind of games, you know you're in the driver's seat. But like we talked about, these kind of mature, older teams, they know how to not let up off the gas, right? They know how to stay composed and not get too complacent, right? And we're seeing that from GOAT. They are not making it easy for Mephisto at any point in this game to attempt to even get a hold, let alone a break, right? So Mephisto definitely got a little bit of a hill to climb.
I
GOAT
imagine we'll
still got work to do.
yeah, and that work to do will be with what I'm thinking will be that zone, right? I think we're going to see this zone look from GOAT once again. Mackenzie's pull is going to stay in bounds, a little bit of a bounce.
We do have a taller line here for the GOAT line, and we do have a little bit of a zone, right? A little bit poachy style, kind of sloughing a little bit there.
But McCown with the disc, I'm hearing loud shooter call from the GOAT sideline, meaning he's someone that is going to take shots. Watch out for the Huck. Dyke's throw is a little too shallow, and Carroll's able to run onto that. That pass up the line, though, a tight one to Jeff Powell, and it goes off his hands. Kind of had to toe the line and make the catch at the same time. A floaty pass from Tremblay sails in the wind to Mephisto as they get the upwind hold. I believe thanks to Antoine Rousseau bringing that in. The score now 12 for GOAT and 8 for Mephisto.
Yeah, and this is one of those moments where we'd like to see a break from Mephisto, right? They're in the driver's seat, like we said, but it's been hard now, right? Both teams have been comfortably scoring upwind. They're understanding how to play against this wind now. They know what to do. And even these zone looks that both teams are putting up against each other aren't really working, right? Both GOAT and Mephisto have been able to hit those around throws, hit the quick up lines, go back and forth between their handlers, and really, really effectively use everyone on the field. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm wondering how Mephisto is going to adapt, change, or throw something at the wall here to see if it sticks. You're down 4 points, right? And like I was saying earlier, GOAT has to score to win. It's not like you're going to run out of time. But when that cap does come on, it means that GOAT, since effectively they have the lead, is only going to have to score 1 more point where you're going to have to score 5. So I wonder what we're going to see from Mephisto here to try and shake things up, as GOAT just seems to have the confidence to keep moving it up the field. And it looks like they're going to poach in the handler lane. Doesn't seem to matter as it moves around to Edwards. Edwards goes to Ian McKenzie. Ian will go back to Edwards. Go working it through the middle. Shallow passes. O'Donnell will swing that around to Komire. Komire quickly tells O'Donnell where to throw it. And GOAT's able to get a big huck off of that disc movement. Lewis elevates. And number 15, Luke Komire, showing his wheels left wide open. Seemingly easy score there for GOAT. The score 13-8.
Yeah, and GOAT really using the advantage of the height that they have this game, right? Player like Lewis in the deep space with that height, with that vertical, able to catch it in the deep space quite easily. But I don't want to count Mephisto out, right? We did see this kind of lead yesterday from a familiar team, both from Ontario and Quebec, right? Quebec was down a couple breaks, able to come back when that horn blew, right? So I don't want to count out either of these teams. Still anyone's game, and GOAT cannot let up at this point, right? They're still going to have to push through, and they still got to stay fired up. And it's not easy as a coach to make sure that your team is staying fired up. I think the GOAT management and the GOAT coaching staff is doing a good job to maintain that composure for the team.
They've also had such a good sideline presence as a whole team. I mean, that could be the coaches, giving all their players on the sideline a poke. Like I spoke to Coach Patrick earlier, and he did tell me they were having a good day. And I haven't seen him, though, do – let me make sure I say this right. I haven't seen him do much work on the sideline, but it's because he's done the work at practice, right?
Yeah.
He's let his players know that they have to be active, they have to be loud, they have to be an active sideline, so he doesn't have to do it for them. And GOAT is. Just off this pole, we're hearing a loud cheer as the GOAT defense comes down in that zone. We've heard about a lot today. McCown hitting the ground to keep that alive. He has a big flick fake, but no options really there. Instead, we'll scuba it over the top to Rousseau with a neat unsheathing of the sword scuba. Rousseau will move that to Daigle. Rousseau looking for options. Lacombe Burgoyne has been in the back today a lot for that reset and working these give-goes with McCown and Rousseau. Flips that back to Daigle. Daigle getting some movement here with Lacombe Burgoyne. It's just lateral movement, though. Mephisto only getting a few yards at a time and then being forced to move the disc backwards. Hearing a lot of clapping from the GOAT sideline. As soon as Mephisto moves the disc backwards, you know their strategy on the zone now. They want to move you backwards. That is a win for them. And that presence on the sideline, you don't want to be Mephisto, hear that, get frustrated and try and stick it to them and move it upfield. Instead, you want to be patient, and Rousseau and McCown are doing a good job. And as I say that, a big huck goes out to Tremblay. Yeah, but number 4, Matt O'Brien, able to stick with them and then turn on the afterburners to get that run through D at the last second. Sahab, I may have done a little commentator's curse there.
Oh, it's not easy. I mean, we saw the Mephisto player trying to keep up with it, but he's in that kind of awkward position where the disc is starting to slow down and it allows the defensive player to catch up, right? Even with those extra yards, when the disc starts to slow down, it's not easy to finish off there.
Sadler
carry on with the play here.
Starts moving that disc around. It gets to O'Brien. O'Brien's going to find Sadler on the open side. Sadler thinks about it, sees the double coverage, and there is a poach available, so he finds Huang. Miller calling for it, but instead Huang goes to Sadler. Miller sticks around and is able to get it back. He's wondering where his options are. He finds Latich.
Miller running deep there.
Latich flips that up to Sadler. Finds Huang. Speed underneath. Fights through that contact, doesn't seem phased. He finds a big IO flick opportunity, and O'Brien elevating. That is the bookends D. O'Brien turning on the Jets to make that defensive play in his end zone, and then goes to the other end for the goal. Also seeing a discussion here on the sideline after number 17 on Mephisto was given a TMF, the blue card, for seemingly a backpack bid against Kevin Huang there. The players, though, able to work through that together, but our observers are very much on top of anything that they might find to be dangerous, and any sort of bids like that, they are going to award cards because it's both written in the rules, and also you don't want to be lenient on that sort of thing as it can kind of get away from you. And we want to make sure that teams I imagine the observers hold fast to that rule so that teams understand that it is a hard line in the sand that you don't cross.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't know, we are a non-contact sport, right? In more recent years, with some of these younger players coming in, the sport has started to kind of adopt the more basketball style, football style of having that sort of boxing out and contact, but it is never an intended part of the sport. And we like to avoid as much contact as possible, as we see Mike McKenzie make this big pull. It's going to land into the end zone of Mephisto, or just right outside of the end zone. Carry on with the play here.
Alone Landry been the pivot handler for Mephisto today. Finds Uli. Back to Alone Landry. Leonard. Alone Landry saw Charles Gay signaling for the Hawk, but that disc had the wrong edge on it and sails out of bounds. We see that tiny orange pylon on the field, marking where it is. Jason Huynh throws a big backhand fake. Goes around to Lewis. Powell goes to Michael McKenzie. And Huynh will punch that in to Carroll. The score now 15-8. That is the end of the game. Goat getting the breaks when they needed to. Early in the first half, Sahab, I think, is where we knew, not early in the first half, I should say, later in the first half is where we knew that Goat was in the control of this game. How'd you see it go down?
Yeah, definitely starting off with those 3 breaks that Goat got, right? It really puts them in the driver's seat, like you were saying. And it's hard to come back from those, right? It's hard as a younger team like Mephisto to play against a household name like Goat, right? You come into this tournament, and when you see Goat in your pool, you kind of gulp a little bit, right? You get that big lump in your throat, like, oh man, I don't want to verse these guys, right? It can be a little bit scary. It can be intimidating to play against these household names, right? But I think Mephisto was able to play quite well, regardless of all of that, right? They played their game, and it didn't turn out in their favor. Goat comes out on top, shows their mastery of the sport, really, really working hard for each and every single point. And that's the team that we'd love to see, and looking forward to seeing them later again in our championship bracket play.
Well, fans, keep your eye on the stream schedule. Our next scheduled game today is at 4:30 for the mixed division crossover. We will be back with you in a little while, but we're going to have a chance to take a lunch break, and we'll be out and about in the tournament doing our homework for you so we can bring you the scoop for our mixed crossover, and it should be a good story. Excited to be back with you in a few hours.
Thanks so much. Take care.